A month ago, we got engaged, and we want to have an intentional relationship. And so we decided, look, we're going to take on kind of a bold challenge of interviewing 100 couples before we get married. So if you're listening to this first time, that's what's happening here. And we also, we care about this. We really are intentional about wanting to be the best to show up for each other. And for those of you that are new to our story, you may want to go listen to the first few episodes. The first few episodes, we share Brioche's story and my story. You want to give them just a little quick glimpse of what they could see there?
Yeah, so I lost my child in a drowning accident when he was 2.5 years old. And since then, actually, my relationship with him and my relationship with myself and my relationship with life has deepened to a whole new level. So I'm really passionate about helping other people understand that life and love and grief and loss live all in this same bucket, and it's not one or the other. And Connor here has helped show me a lot of that. He'd shown me that I can feel immense loss and grief and still fall in love again. So that's what you'd find in the first 3 episodes. That's a little bit about me and about us.
I love it.
The way we met was actually really cool. We met on an ayahuasca trip in Colombia, which we talk about in episode 3.
Yep.
And that's actually how we met our first couple right here.
So our interview tonight is with Hunter and Sarah Clark. These two, we met. Well, I guess we met Hunter in Colombia. Sarah was not on the trip because
she
you
was
were
very
home.
pregnant.
Yeah, you were home pregnant, getting ready to have Ruby, who is in the room today. And Ruby is really cute. So we know exactly, this is how old our relationship is.
Right
we're
there.
this old, right?
In
That
this
child.
form.
I love it. And so, but this couple, they have really embraced vulnerability with each other. I think a lot of people in today's world, we just don't have the ability to have those deep conversations, right? A lot stays on the surface. And these two have not only done that, but they've now helped so many other people do that. Mm-hmm. Specifically, Hunter has tackled the issue of pornography. And a lot of married men out there that feel so much shame and guilt around not even being willing or comfortable to share that with anyone, let alone their person, and kind of feeling that, once I get married, or that won't be a part of my life. But you've had the chance to coach hundreds of guys now and help them through that process.
Something that's really cool about Hunter actually is he's very open about it. My first time meeting him, he was so open about his struggle with pornography, which it's a taboo subject, right? And it caught me off guard, but then I got to know him and I got to see how passionate he is about actually helping men, not only with their pornography addictions, but finding what's underneath the addiction, right? Because it all stems from somewhere. And that's the exact same thing Sarah does in her nutrition and coaching. She helps women understand how to connect to their bodies and understand why the disconnect might lead to nutrition problems or eating problems.
And crazy connection. I didn't know Hunter or Sarah, but when I get down to Colombia, I realized that Hunter's wife, Sarah, had totally helped my little sister. So my little sister, Carly, you changed her life. I'm not kidding you. I'm her older brother, and there's just 2 of us, and that, weight and those things was always an issue and always a topic of conversation. And you changed, and she'd tell you, it was a mindset thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not diet or no diet. And so it was really cool. We had these connections already. She still swears by you, and she still looks freaking awesome. Right?
Yeah.
And she doesn't work with you anymore. That's the whole goal, is that we're not having to work with you every week to look great. I don't have anything else. Let's get them on stage.
Okay.
Please give a huge warm welcome to Hunter and Sarah Clark. All right. Perfect.
Nice job,
Get some
Hunter.
hugs and we'll roll.
Hopefully it's okay. I have my water
Hi,
bottle.
guys. Yeah, bring your water.
It's
We forgot ours.
I know.
We're all right. How we doing, guys?
Dude, we're doing good. Stoked to be
If
here.
you don't like the pillow,
Yeah,
you can
throw
take it
that
down.
pillow behind you, by the way. They're completely for show and they're uncomfortable. So if you
Yeah.
don't want to, don't worry about it. Have you ever done anything like this?
No talk show. No,
Yeah?
this is a first timer.
Kind of
You've
nervy.
got mom and dad in the crowd right
We
here.
got a big crowd. We're stoked about ready to go.
Huge crowd. I mean, thousands of people. Hey, but it's got to start somewhere, right?
Everyone
But
that's
I will
important to
say
me.
this. I guarantee you this is the biggest crowd you've ever had for a podcast.
That's true.
Yep,
That's
I'm right.
impressive.
Exactly.
That's
It's all about how you frame it, right? Let's start right here. How did the 2 of you meet? We just talked about how we met a little, and we'll get more into it. How did you 2 meet?
Yeah, so I was doing summer sales, you know, the classic Utah County boy summer sales story. And as I was out in California, I got a call from an old friend, and he's like, hey, I have this girl that I want you to meet, but she's way out of your league. I'm like,
Naturally.
I'm like, okay. And then at the time I was dating someone, so I was like, okay, that's fine, but like, I don't really care. And he's like, just follow her on Instagram. I'm like, okay. So I followed her, and then I just couldn't get her out of my head.
Aw.
But hold on, you're dating someone.
I was dating someone.
Problem.
That's just a little
Yeah.
inconvenience.
So I broke up with the girl that I was currently dating, and then I moved back to Utah.
Wait, did you break up with the girl that you were dating for Sarah? Or
I mean, there were a few other reasons.
there were a few other things, but Sarah was kind of in your mind.
Sarah was definitely in my mind, and I didn't feel
Right.
good about, continuing
Right.
a relationship as
And
I
how
wanted to
long were
pursue.
you with that other girl?
Like 3 or 4 months.
It,
I'm not
did,
super long.
okay.
it never seemed like it was super serious from the stories you've told me. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
See, truth comes out.
Anyways.
This is unscripted. I have a question actually though. Like, what did you see on her social? I mean, obviously she's cute and pretty.
Yeah.
But what made you go like, wait, I've got to check what's going on here?
See, I don't think it was so much of like what I saw. I think it was just more like energetically like what I felt. And I felt like it was very divine how
Yeah.
we interacted and got to know each other. So I do feel like it was more divine intervention that
Yeah.
I just couldn't stop thinking about her.
Yeah.
So you pulled up her profile and you felt her energy.
Something like that.
No,
yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got home from I got home from sales, and we're trying to get hooked up on a double date, and just nothing was really working. The friends that connected us weren't.
Well, the friend that connected with him first was his friend from the MTC, I was doing summer sales at the time too. He was my manager.
Oh.
And his wife was my best friend. So she's like, hey, you need to go on this date with Hunter Clark. We want to go on a double with you guys. So at this point, I knew who he was. And I was like, okay, yeah, like set us up on a date. But it never happened. But anyways, you can finish. You can keep going.
And I knew some people that she hung out with.
So I had like my sales friends, who was the first person that introduced him, and then that told me about me, said all those things. And then I had like my high school friends. And so he was friends with both of them too, but we weren't friends. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Is this following?
Yeah, I got you.
Following?
It's Small Lake City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So-
Utah County. That's what it is. It's Utah County.
So I didn't know her high school friends like she was saying very well, but I knew if I hung out with the high school friends one day, Sarah would just show up, just naturally.
Oh, okay.
And
Smooth.
so I started hanging out with the high school buddies of hers, and then, one day she pulled up, and I was like, "Oh, what a surprise! You're here!" And then we started hanging out.
No, it was not like that. What happened is, it was not what a surprise you were here. It was, I knew who he was, and he knew who I was, and he pulls up in his nice Tesla that he just got from that summer, and I knew he was wanting to take me out. And so I'm like, okay, we know who each other is. I'm not going to play like we don't know.
Yeah.
And so he pulls up in front of my house because they're all picking me up to go to this hot tub, and he acts like he doesn't know me, and I'm like, "What's up, Hunter Clark?"
Oh.
I was
And
totally
he's like
ready to
trying
play
to play
it
all
cool.
He's
cool.
trying to play super
Yeah, he's
cool.
trying to play all cool, and I'm like, "Don't even like, we know who each other are. I know you've been wanting to take me on a date." And he's like, "Oh, hello." It was just freaking dumb.
Hey, Sarah, I don't want to
Like,
tell
hey,
you how
Sarah.
I really know you very well, but I do know you super well.
You're like, hey, I'll save you time. Yes, you can take me out.
Yeah.
I love
And then we went to hot tub and we just talked the whole time and hung out every day since
Aw, that's
So
so
it was
sweet.
on. And when was that?
December 2020 is when
2020.
we met.
Oh.
Okay, so COVID, you're a
Yeah.
COVID couple, kind of in the madness of the pandemic and all that. That's when you connect, right? You can
Yeah.
claim
I mean,
a
it was
little.
kind of near the end. I feel like
Yeah.
December 2020, like, yeah, a little bit, but our
Oh,
wedding
yeah, that
was
is
pretty.
near the end,
Our,
huh?
our wedding was still pretty normal.
Okay.
So
Cool.
when you guys were dating, how far were you in your relationship when you knew like each other was the one?
Want to go first?
Yeah. I mean, this is another story, but I would probably say. So I crashed his Tesla. And it was when I crashed his Tesla that I was like, that's another story, but.
On purpose to test
I know,
him?
seriously.
You guys are interesting.
We were going, anyways, long story short, we were going down Provo Canyon, and he was driving a car in front of me, I was driving his Tesla, and I slipped, and I guess there's a mode on the Tesla that I didn't know about. When you let go of the gas, it automatically brakes, so as I started fishtailing, I let go of the gas, so it braked, and then I spun around and I crashed it.
That's really dangerous, Elon.
Oh, I know. Tell me. Actually, though, I would say if I was in my other little Honda Fit tiny car, it would have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
The Tesla was pretty sturdy, but yeah, the whole function, that whole mode thing of like brake.
Yeah.
Anyways, but Hunter, the way he reacted when I had crashed his Tesla, like he had every right just to be so mad at me. He worked really hard for that car the whole summer, only had it for 3 months. And he was just so kind and forgiving and loving and just like wanted to make sure I was okay. And I think that was the moment that I was like, I think I love this guy. Like
That's so
that was so sweet. I know.
How far in was that again?
Like 2 months.
Yeah.
We
Oh my
didn't date very
gosh.
long
Yeah.
until we got married. So yeah, that was like 2 months.
Yeah.
That's really sweet. And what were you thinking when she crashed your car?
You can be honest. I'm not.
I love this girl.
You reacted well. Your thoughts. It's okay if they don't.
There's more cars in the world.
Yeah, my initial thought was I saw the crash, and I saw, it was a hard crash, but I also knew that she was okay from the crash, because it wasn't like crazy.
So that's where your first thing goes. Are you okay?
Yeah, is she
love
okay? And then I knew she was okay, and then my second thought was like, oh, my car just crashed head on, just busted. And then as I pulled over and I was running up the road to her, I just had this very distinct impression like, don't be mad. Just don't be mad. And so I pulled up, gave her a hug, and said it's okay. And yeah, it was actually a really special moment while we were dating.
That's really cool.
It just cost me a lot of money, but other than that, it was very special.
Now, did you know already that she was the one? I'm going to guess yes.
Yeah, we were definitely on the path of getting married.
I would
it
say
wasn't
you were
until later.
Yeah, I would
that
say
I
for
found
you,
out.
it was more when we went to Hawaii that you were like.
Yeah, we went on a little trip and we just like sat on the beach and we like really talked about marriage, and I was like, you know, like that actually feels really good. And then that's kind of when we stepped into it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And ever since, it's just been no bumps, and it's just amazing.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's how it's all portrayed, right?
No more
Nothing
Tesla
hard.
crashes.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Very cool. So just timeline on that then. So how long from when you met to engaged and married?
Yeah, met and married in 4 months.
So,
met and married.
Yeah.
When
so-
was the engagement in there? How'd you plan for a wedding?
Our engaged Heidi. It's probably like that was a little crazy. My mother-in-law. Our engagement was 3 weeks, and so I planned it in about a month. I planned it a little bit before we got engaged. The reason why our engagement was 3 weeks.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I'm questionable if we're going to be ready by next August.
Yeah. You guys
I'm like
yeah.
15 months. I don't know.
We were fully engaged for 3 weeks. You guys were like a year and a half. Honestly, this was another sign that like everything fell into a place, because when I did start, so the reason why our engagement was 3 weeks is because we were going out to do summer sales. Okay. And so it was a little bit of like, hey, either we wait and get married after the summer or we get married before the summer. And just kind of where we were at in life, I was like, you know, if
we both knew.
Yeah, it's like if we're gonna get married, let's just like get married before the summer. That way we can be husband and wife during the summer and not have to worry about being boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
Yes.
And so yeah, I honestly wasn't super picky about my wedding anyways, and everything just kind of fell into place. The venue I wanted, the DJ I wanted, the first dress I tried on was the one I did, and I had tons of help. My mother-in-law helped me a whole bunch, and like everything, it all worked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Congrats
very awesome.
on all that.
Thanks.
And how long have you been married now? How long has that been?
4 years.
4 years.
We just hit 4 years.
4 years, and you have Ruby's a year?
15 months, yeah.
15 months. Okay, cool. All right. Anything else on their relationship, or should now we get into some of the deeper stuff?
No, we can get into it. I can see people listening to that and being like 3 weeks and thinking that's actually crazy, but Yeah, we can
Yeah,
go deeper.
you know, especially through Breeze followers, we have listeners all over the world, right? And for those of you not in Utah County, Utah, that's a little bit more common here, a little crazy, right? Like,
Well,
the audience didn't
yeah.
go like, oh my gosh, you're just like, oh, okay.
I would say 3 weeks. It's so funny because when you're dating, you're like, I'm not going to be that typical Utah County couple that gets married super quick. And then all of a sudden we got married super quick, and you're like,
But you waited to have a baby.
Yeah,
we waited to have a baby.
You did. All right. So let's talk about Hunter's stuff first.
Yeah. Okay.
So Hunter, one, you decided somewhere along the road that you were going to be open about a part of your life that was like the biggest secrets, the biggest thing to hide and keep in a corner. Now that's what you're posting about on social media daily. How does that shift happen, and what made you have that feeling to go, I'm going to just share?
Yeah. Well, I think it all started, you know, I started struggling with pornography, the classic story, super young, struggled throughout high school,
And
came
what
back from
is
my
super
mission.
young? Like,
9.
okay.
Yeah, so 9 I was introduced. And
Can I ask how? Like,
oh, you
obviously I know the answers too, but like for people listening, like a 9-year-old, what's a 9-year-old doing?
Yeah. Well, the honest answer is I watched Transformers 1 and Megan Fox opening up the car hood.
Yeah, I know.
That like sparked something. And I don't see, you know, that 9-year-old boy as like anything bad happened. I really just see it as like I was very curious at a very young age. And that's what got me to search for, you know, pornographic images.
Yeah.
And then it just slowly built like a snowball throughout high school. And so I served my mission, thought I was done with it. And then I got home from my mission. Well, I served in Mexico, so I had a little walnut phone, so really no chance to even view if I wanted to. And then I got home and I got my smartphone back, and then I started viewing again. So I didn't overcome it on my mission, I just avoided it on my mission. And I told myself, I'm not gonna get married until, you know, I've overcome this. And I dated a few girls, one of those girls we mentioned earlier, and, you know, I decided to break up with him because I hadn't overcome this yet. And then I met Sarah, and I was still struggling with pornography, but I was like, she is so amazing, and I know she's my person. And at first I was like, I'm not gonna tell her, because logically I was like, okay, once we're able to be intimate with each other, then it should just go to the wayside, right? But my dad, who's here, he played a huge role, and he said, hey, you need to tell her. And I was like, well, I'm afraid she's gonna break up with me. He's like, that's what you gotta face if that's what happens. And so I was like, all right. And so a couple weeks into dating, I told her where I was at, and I didn't promise perfection, but I promised that I'd always be open and honest about where I was at with this. And obviously she's not super stoked to hear that, as any girlfriend would be. But after some time thinking about it, and I don't want to tell too much of her story, but we decided to move forward with it. And that was like my first time like really opening up about it. Because I talked to bishops and stuff, but like really...
Church leaders? Yeah.
Yeah, church leaders, but truly like being vulnerable to someone that I care about and was worried about losing was with Sarah. And so that was a huge moment, I think, in our relationship of, one, how she reacted and how she just didn't view me as, you know, this guy who struggled. She viewed so much more past that, and that was like a really telling sign that Sarah was a good the person for me. So
I love that. One, that's so cool. This is one of the first times on this stage we've had a very emotional moment about someone in the crowd. Like, that's so cool.
That's really cool.
And actually, before we jump to the two of you, I want to talk about that. you were quiet about it, but you were comfortable enough to talk about it with your dad. Like, what did that conversation look like, and why is that so important to you now of like, if he didn't have that conversation with you, then maybe this looks different?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because now I do this for my work as I help guys with this. And I've heard so many stories of guys who thought that it would go away when they got married, so they actually didn't say anything. And then 3 or 4 years into marriage, they either get caught or it comes up, and it's this big devastating moment when I felt like we were able to approach it in a much healthier way along the way. And my dad was just a huge support in helping me do that.
It's cool. Good
That's
job,
really
Dad.
good advice, Dad. There you go.
Thanks, Paul.
That's
I
right.
appreciate it too.
Let's go to Sarah. So talk to us about, I mean, when you hear that and all of a sudden you go through that situation now, like, what did that feel like? How did you navigate it?
Yeah. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I reacted as good as I did, but I think that it was all divine. I think that when Hunter told me, I felt a lot of compassion towards him. Being completely transparent, I never struggled with pornography, but I had looked at it like a couple times when I was a teenager, and I remember how much it weighed on me when I had looked at it a couple of times, and how much guilt I had felt just from that. And so when he had told me, I had felt like that feeling that he had felt, but like not even being able to imagine what that might feel like as an addiction for 10 years versus maybe 2 times, you know? And so immediately I just felt a lot of compassion and love towards him. And I felt like his ability and willingness to be completely honest and open with me meant a lot. And it was a risk, you know, like I can say, yeah, he can say, yes, I'll be honest with you. And it still is a risk of like, hey, well, will he be honest with me? And, you know, I trusted him. And I think I did my best to create space so that he could stay in integrity with me. And yeah, and he did. And he was always honest with me throughout dating.
Yeah.
And
Do you feel that it's like bonded you two even deeper and closer, just sharing that with each other?
Oh, for sure.
yeah, I mean, it's been hard.
Yeah.
It's been hard for sure. And there's been, I think, you know, throughout our marriage, there has been times that it's more separated us, but as we worked through it, it has deepened us.
Totally.
But it hasn't been completely like this. It's been like, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad that you say that.
Yeah, tell me, like, I think in this topic, it's hard, like a word like addiction, right? Like a lot of people, someone missing, like, what does that mean, right? Or potentially you have someone that looks at it 2 times and then they're feeling they're the worst person ever, right? And so what have you seen in working with a lot of people of like, what is the spectrum almost of what you see, and where do you see like appropriate accountability, but at the same time not falling into the shame and I'm broken and I'm, you know, the world's biggest loser?
Yeah. Well, I think the word addiction a lot of times does more harm than good.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
a lot of, you know, guys that I talk to, I'd probably say 95% of them I wouldn't label as addicted. I'd just say habits. They have habits. And just like habits are created, habits can be uncreated or untrained. And so that's like the biggest thing that I've been focusing on is, you know, how do you get rid of the shame? And what I've learned is people need less accountability and they need more open conversations and they need more friends to talk to about this. So my recovery just looked so much different than, you know, the typical have an accountability partner and go X amount of days and then you're free. It was very different. And that's why I felt inspired to, you know, open up and share my story and help others do the same.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. How is it different? Because I know the 2 of you did it together. Like, it was teamwork.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing was when I got rid of shame, and the way I did that was opening up about it. So I started telling friends, I started telling people I worked with in appropriate ways. And it was so interesting because my desire to view pornography just faded. And that's when I knew I was onto something. Because all the other times I had gone 30 days, 90 days without it, but just like pure, just like willpower and white knuckle.
And it's like you're making it this huge thing, right?
Giving more power to it. And the more that I just accepted it, had less shame about it, the more I figured out that it's not about the behavior, it's what's driving the behavior, the more porn just really faded out of my life. And it went away in a sense that I didn't feel like I was trying anymore. And that's when it clicked of like, I think I have something special here. And that's where I went into it. And I want to tell this story because a couple months ago, Sarah came to me and she was like, you know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually grateful for your pornography stuff. And so now I want to pass it over to you and like how...
Tease you up after the break.
Yeah. Oh, after the break.
I'm totally teasing.
I was like, is there a break?
Chris Harrison there.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I said that is because Hunter's pornography addiction, as hard as it's been, it has brought me back to myself. And something that I feel passionate about in this recovery is, you know, as much as Hunter's doing a lot of work to help the men be seen, as that needs to happen. Like, men are struggling and they don't feel seen. They feel alone. It needs to be talked about more because more people are struggling with it. But on the other hand, women need to be seen. Women that are struggling and women that are married or partnered with men that are struggling. You know, I just talked to a girl the other day and she said, I was the first person she talked to about it. And her husband's been struggling and she's like, I don't want to talk. Because for me, the first 2 years of our marriage, I didn't talk to anybody about it because I want to protect Hunter. I don't want anyone to think differently of Hunter. Like, I see his heart. And also, you know, there's a little bit of embarrassment of like, I'm married to a man who struggles with pornography. Like, I didn't know how to talk about it. I feel like people wouldn't understand. I didn't want to tell my mom about it because I knew she'd be like, run. But it's like, I see Hunter. And just realizing that as I've opened up about it, it's also helped me. And being able to notice that Hunter's pornography habit has been able to illuminate things inside me that needed to be healed and needed to be worked on. For example, like body dysmorphia, body image struggles is something that I always struggled with growing up. And so I always thought it was funny. I was like, God, that's so funny you would give me a husband that struggled with pornography when that's something that I always struggle with. But for me, instead of looking at it as a bad thing, looking at it as an opportunity that I can really come into myself and start developing more self-love and more self-acceptance and a better relationship with myself. And, you know, I'm sure there could have been other struggles within our marriage that could have maybe done that. But I do feel like Hunter's, this issue that, you know, this thing that we've worked through and been working through has really helped me develop a better relationship with myself. And that's something that I feel passionate helping other women and other wives is, you know, stop focusing on your husband's recovery and start focusing on yourself. And when you can actually disconnect yourself from his addiction, you can still care. Disconnecting doesn't mean you don't care. You can still care. But when you can disconnect from his addiction,
like stop taking it personal.
Stop taking it personal. It doesn't mean anything about you. You know, if Hunter's been struggling with this since he was 10 years old, it means nothing about me. I've only known him for, you know, way less than that.
Right.
And I feel like for a long time, I put a cap to my own growth, like a ceiling to my own growth of like, when Hunter overcomes this, then finally I can feel better about myself. Then I can love myself. Then I can feel sexy in myself, in my body. But in reality, I came to this realization of like, man, I am putting his addiction and his recovery as a ceiling to my growth. And I actually had this meditation one time where I envisioned that I was in this cage, and the cage was his addiction. And I had myself in the cage, and you know, I always thought like, oh, once he overcomes this, then the cage will unlock and I'll be free.
Whoa, I just got chills.
But in reality, like I had the key to unlock the cage.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just like, all I had to do is let myself free of it. And what's been cool is as I've been able to focus on myself and disconnect and let him do him, it's actually helped him be able to do him and like give him the freedom and let him be able to grow in the way that he needs to grow instead of me trying to control it and because I'm uncomfortable because I feel unsafe, and rather building safety within myself first.
So it challenged you in all the right ways.
For sure. Yeah.
I love that. As you're talking, like, I'm seeing the theme of this show, fully engaged, right? Like, in different ways, because there's an interesting paradox that I think you hit on there. Is on the one side, you two are doing it together. Like, you're a team. I know that you talk about it openly and go through it. And what's interesting is you're both tackling different issues, not only with yourselves, but for other people. Pornography, body dysmorphia, which are kind of on interesting sides of the spectrum, right? But then you also recognize that you had to do it on your own too. Like, it was his stuff and it was your stuff, and you had to support each other while also letting the other person do it, right? So
Sure.
I don't necessarily know what my question is. I just want you to tell me on this, like, what does fully engaged look like when you're both doing your own thing, but yet unified in front?
Yeah, I would say I feel like what we came to realize and what really helped me understand his pornography habit was also, I was able to understand it because I'm in nutrition, and so I was able to understand it from like a food addiction perspective or like binge eating this perspective, where, you know, your relationship with food and body, like your relationship with pornography, and your habits around that are less to do with that thing. You know, it was less to do with pornography and more about the beliefs and the subconscious programming that's on the inside, more about like what's stored inside your body, what things are triggering that. And you know, food addictions and pornography addictions, they're just coping mechanisms. They're coping mechanisms to something that's not being addressed on the inside. And so as Hunter's been able, as we've both been able to discover that, it's like, okay, it's not about willpowering yourself out of pornography addiction, or same thing, like it's not about willpowering with food necessarily.
Whatever.
It's like, let's get down to who you are as a person, who's your authentic self, what's not aligned right now, what do we need to bring awareness to so that we can change that. And honestly, I feel like personally, I think a lot of it is developing more self-love, which for men, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like I'm speaking a lot, but for men, I feel like the idea of self-love is pretty feminine and taboo, and they're like, nah, I'm this hard man, I'm tough.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, self-love is healing. And I think a lot of men forget that they need to love themselves, and a lot of women too. Exactly. But I think if you can't love yourself first, it's gonna be really hard to give that. You can't pour from an empty glass, right? And so as we have both worked on ourselves and loving ourselves, a result of that has been him getting, overcoming pornography, me feeling better and the things that I'm working through, and then we've been able to like become a lot closer.
I love that.
That was so well spoken.
Thanks.
That was incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
She teed you up. Let's hear it, Hunter.
Oh, I know. I just feel, just to reiterate a little bit, I think I've noticed the more that I've tried to control her growth, or her the same with me, the further we've distanced ourselves. So it's in a way of like, you grow where you need to grow, and I'm supporting that. I don't know where that is, and nor do I have an agenda where I think you should grow, and vice versa. And just like Sarah said, that's brought us so close to each other.
And I feel like for a while we did have agendas for each other.
For sure.
And that's when things became super contentious. Because like I wanted him to do this and this and this, and I had all these ideas of like, this is what you can do. And he would do the same to me, and it just like, it created this contention. And when someone tells you, when you feel an answer inside you, and it comes out, it feels way more embodied when you find those answers. But if someone tells you, sometimes it'll hit, but when something can be embodied, is that making sense? Like when you feel something from the inside, like an answer, a way of growth, it's going to hit differently than if somebody's like, hey, Hunter, this is what I think you should do to overcome pornography. Like, he needs to come to that himself.
Right. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's been an amazing ride, and I would love to touch on, going to Colombia with you two.
Yeah.
That was,
let's hit it. Let's go there, and then we'll see how it's transformed.
I have a question for you that leads into that then. What point in your journey were you like, I'm going to go to Colombia and do ayahuasca to help me overcome my porn addiction? Like, where were you when that hit?
Yeah, I just had realized what I was doing wasn't working. So, I was doing all the things that you were supposed to do to overcome it, and I was like, this is not working. And at the time, I knew what Sarah said, it's something deeper. And I was like, the best and fastest way I know to get into your deepest self is to go do, ayahuasca. And I'd never done it, and I didn't.
Wait, but how do you know that? Like, what did you see?
So a friend recommended it. Yeah.
Just some guy from Utah that's like, well, you want to get deep, go down to the Amazon.
No, they're not wrong for sure. So
you decided like you wanted to go, and you were specific with that intention. Like,
very specific.
And he wore it on his sleeve, which was kind of surprising. He was like, hey, Hunter, like, what made you come here? I'm struggling with pornography. I'm working on this, and this is why I'm here. Like, good for you. Like, well, all right, let's knock this out. What does it look like? Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Talk a little about that week.
The week was very sacred. It was a great way. Well, so much happened, as you guys know. Like,
So you guys were roommates.
me and Connor were
We
roommates, and
in
I
a
was like,
Colombian bunk.
I was like, who is this guy? My roommate, this weird guy. And then, first night we're thrown up together. I'm like, all right, this guy's pretty cool.
You bond really fast.
We bonded really
We
fast.
were in a group of like 12 people. How many people were there?
Like 15, 20, yeah.
15 people from Utah. You guys were roommates, and then I also got to meet you on that trip too. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. No, and just, summarizing that trip, I think I learned so much about myself, but I think the biggest thing that I got from that trip was really understanding the divine women and the divine feminine. And I feel like I almost had like a reset because I'd conditioned my brain since 9 years old to view women a certain way. And ayahuasca just was like a reset where I was able to see, not to get too explicit, but I was able to see like breasts not as these sexual things, but as, life-giving organs and the whole female body. And it was just so incredible to see the divine in the women again. And it was something that I had missed. And so that was like the summary of the trip. Lots more happened, but it was really incredible.
And Sarah, how do you feel when he says that? Like, what feelings come up for you?
I love that, obviously. I think that it's part of my own healing too, has been seeing my own body as divine and beautiful and like life-giving and magical. Being pregnant with Ruby was really healing for me. And so obviously him coming back from ayahuasca and being able to see my body as divine means so much to me.
And you were pregnant at the time too, so
Yeah.
Which was really cool because, there's this stigma that, when your wife gets pregnant, her body changes in like a negative way and all these things, but truly, like, it was one of the most beautiful times of our marriage was to see her in that state of being pregnant and her body literally creating another human was like so wild. So
Yeah. So cool. I love that. Hi, Ruby. Oh, Ruby went out. Okay, let's end with this question here to both of you. I think this is an interesting interview because at the end of the day, you can talk like symptoms or give the details at the end, but you go back to self-love. Like you go back to mindset, all of these things for whatever it might be. The two of you coached a lot of people in a specific area, right? So same question to both of you. What have you learned through all the people that you've talked to working through, healthy eating habits or pornography addiction or whatever it might be, and to those that might be struggling with those things or haven't been willing to talk about it, or maybe they struggle with those issues but would never hire a coach or someone like that, what advice would you give to them from what you know now?
the first thing I would say, and it's like very obvious, is that whoever is struggling with pornography, and the stats are, unfortunately pretty high, is first of all, they're not broken. Like truly, they're not broken. There's nothing inherently wrong with the person that's struggling. I truly just believe they don't have the right tools yet. and they've approached it in the wrong way. And it, with the right tools, overcoming pornography can actually be a lot easier than what most people expect. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
You're not broken, get some help.
Yeah.
Just look at it a different
Get
way.
the right
I like
tools.
that. Yeah, all right.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
I would say with the people that I've worked with in nutrition and also the wives that I've worked with through him is the best thing that you can do to achieve your fitness goals, your nutrition goals, or just to feel better in your relationship is to first develop a better relationship with yourself. If you don't have a good relationship with yourself, it doesn't matter how good the other relationships are, you're never going to feel completely fulfilled.
Agreed.
And so I would say focus more on yourself first, and things around you are going to start aligning.
I love
Really
that.
good.
I love that. I always say, like, we all complain about, you know, like, it's hard to connect with people or have these, we talk about other people. It's like, well, you have to connect with yourself before you can ever connect with anyone else.
sure.
And if you're not connected with yourself, you might be connecting with someone else, but you're in a mask, or you're not that person, and so the connection isn't real anyways. It's
Exactly.
forced, or it's counterfeit. So I love that thought. This is a fun interview. You want to ask these guys anything else before we do the WTF minute?
No, I think I'm ready for the WTF.
Okay. Yeah, on this show, and one of the things we do at WTF is we believe in the abundance mentality. So if anyone comes and pours into us, we want to pour back into them, but we do it in kind of a fun way. We actually give you 60 seconds, and we're going to let both of you do it because you both are rocking different businesses and stuff, and we'll do it separate here. But just tell them what they need to know, how they can find you, whatever it might be. We purposely do this as 60 seconds because these clips are then all put on our social media and stuff like that, so it creates a cool little reel. We got a bunch of these already. So anyway, let's see, let's time this. Who wants to start?
I can go first.
All right, Hunter, you go first, and we got our clock open. On your mark, get set. Oh, and look right into that camera, because that's
Okay.
going to be a reel. All right,
Okay.
go.
I would say, you know, I feel like I'm just a guy trying to figure it out, and I feel like I've learned so much along the way, and I very much feel like I'm still a student, and I'm still learning, and I'm growing, and I'm just trying to be the person that I wish that I had 3 years ago. And so that's really what I'm trying to do with my program, with my coaching, is not portray that I have all these answers and have it all figured out, but just I'm on the journey, I'm learning with you guys, and I'm still figuring it out. And if that calls to you, you can follow me on Instagram at _hunter.clark, and I would love to work with you or hear your story.
Wow, that was 56 seconds. Give him a round of applause.
Good job, baby.
Hunter, I'm going to give you a compliment.
Okay.
I've helped a lot of people work through their messaging and talk through things, and I play this game. It's one of the first things I do. And it's funny because we start the clock, and usually what happens, like word vomit, like, la, 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 la. I'm guilty of it. We set the clock and hit go for you, and he took this big breath. Yeah, Tiffany caught this. He took this big breath. He thought about it. You saw you actually drop into like why you cared so much. And then by the end of that, you got tears in your eyes. And that's why I love you, because we both cry. Because this stuff it's important, right? And the moment you catch on to helping other people or seeing them go from this to that, especially if it's somewhere you've been and you can help illuminate that path and show them as a guide, like, it's freaking awesome. So anyway, I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah, go follow this guy. Go check him out. And I know you're going to help. You already have a lot of people, but a lot more. So anyway, thanks for coming on. Sarah, your turn. We just got all gushy. And now you're just going to be like, get your macros right and get to the gym and let's figure this out.
Yeah, well, I feel like my business is going through a little bit of a rebrand right now in and of itself, which I don't really know what it's going to look like yet, but
Cool.
I can still do it.
Oh, do you want to do it? Yeah, okay,
I don't know.
for it.
People
Look
don't
right
need
here.
to.
You don't need 60.
Oh.
We don't have time. You go ahead.
Oh, we don't need to do it if we don't want to. Or, okay, yeah.
It's your show.
Do it.
Okay. Yeah, I am. Do you want to time me or am
60
I?
seconds
Okay.
and go. Look right at that camera.
Yeah. If you're looking for someone to resonate regarding motherhood, regarding spirituality, regarding your body image, regarding your relationship with food, I talk a lot about that because of my own experience. Just like Hunter said, I am still a student to those things, but I love sharing and I love talking about it with others. My coaching program is going through a little bit of a revamp right now, but if you do want to follow along, you can follow me at Sarah Clark _. It's SarahClarkk _, and then you can listen to my podcast at Sarah Clark Podcast.
I love it. That was fantastic. Give her a round of applause. Yeah, like 15 seconds. Okay, that's all we got. Breosha has a gift for you, Sarah. You want to share that gift, and then we'll be done.
Yes. Sarah, I think you are so inspiring when it comes to not only helping people and women with body dysmorphia, but also doing the inner work, finding their spirituality, their connection to self, love, God, and all of the above. So I love you so much. I made you this butterfly. Oh, where'd she go?
Where are they? There they are.
Oh, thank you. I've been seeing these everywhere. So.
Aw. Yes, thanks for coming.
Breosha started a jewelry company called Osha Chains, and she actually specializes in remembrance pieces that are focused on people that have been lost and have meaning. The butterfly is a main symbol of our son Romeo. I said our son Romeo, and it felt okay. Here we are. All right. Now here we are. Get up. I love you guys. That's all we got. Thank you.
Give me your attention, baby.
That felt so good.
Gotta tell you a little something about yourself. You're one of our flawless.
Thanks, brother.
All right, let's do it. Okay, round 2. Kind of fun, right? What do we think of that first interview?
So good.
Yeah, that couple, they're a piece of work.
Who invited
I
them?
love those guys. All right. Okay, well, we've already gone through the routine, so we're going to do this again, and we'll reset. Tiffany, I'll ask you this. Do you have any questions that you recommend I ask Weston and Kierazleah?
Well, I think they have chosen this stewardship together, and I think it's beautiful. But so many dynamics, right?
Yeah.
And then really empowering each other to grow in their own businesses and their own giftings. I think that's a really cool thing. But I think it's always a beautiful thing when partners can get behind if one person is growing in a really big way and they have the full support of their person, and then do it for the other when it's their turn. So I think they have a really good balance of what they want to be doing right now.
Yeah, and they made some big moves. We were just talking about that. It's his first speaking gig ever on Friday. We're like, let's go.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Cool. I want to try something since this is going to be our last official ever guinea pig interview. Just teasing. Just kidding. Tiffany, I would like, I'm gonna at some point, I'm gonna ask for a question from the audience, and you're gonna fire one up. You can ask with that or there, but I want to see, that's one of the things we're trying to work into is how we can get a little more audience interaction, and so just trying to kind of get a feel from up here.
Do we have a microphone ready for
how
it?
we can include that. Yeah, so.
I have this extra mic that I can do as a roaming mic right here.
Yeah, I know we have it. And that camera's set up, right? Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, you can stay there too. You're fine. Wherever you want to sit. To be honest, I will be real with you. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but it's going to hit me in it. And the idea's here, and you all knew, okay? So the teamwork looks like. Okay, we ready to roll?
I think we're ready.
And do you go by last name Weston as well?
Oh, I need...
Or Brandon as well? Geez, I said it wrong. That I meant Brandon. Okay, perfect. Are we ready? And then Bree just walks away.
You reminded me I forgot something.
There we go. All right.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fully Engaged. How we doing, Briosha?
Doing pretty good.
This is our second interview of the night for those that are here live in studio. We've had an awesome first interview, but this next couple we're bringing up, they have an incredible story, and honestly, they have some similarities to our story. And so when we heard what they were doing, we're like, oh man, I would love to talk. I think there's going to be some commonalities here that I'm really excited to get into and talk about.
Yeah.
Let's first say to those of you that may be listening for the first time, I'm Connor DeLynn. This is
I'm
Briosha.
Briosha.
And we just got engaged a month ago. And the whole purpose of this show, it's called Fully Engaged. We want to live an intentional life. We want to have an intentional life, and we know that the most important, probably part of that successful and happy life is our relationship. And so we want to do it intentional. We've taken on the challenge to interview 100 couples before we get married. And we do it in kind of this fun format with a live in-studio audience. And we also know that for those who haven't heard our story, we tell it in episodes 1 through 3. But we have things that we have to work through, and we're working through together as a team. If you want to give them a little bit.
We're not working through anything.
Yes.
It's all rainbows and butterflies over here.
Exactly. Tell them about what they'd see in those first few episodes.
Yeah, so if you watch the first 3 episodes are our story. We met in a really, really cool way. We actually believe my son, who passed away a few years ago, we believe that he's the one who brought us together. So we met on an ayahuasca trip in Colombia and got to know each other and fell in love that way. When we met, I didn't even believe in marriage. And so it's crazy that we're now doing a show called Fully Engaged, where we interview other married couples and couples to figure out what makes them engaged with each other and what makes their relationship work. So.
Yeah. Yeah, when I met Bree and I heard her story, I was like, wait, you are filled with so much light and so happy and have so much goodness about you, and that's what you're dealing with right now? That's what you're going through? I had a hard time recognizing that. And our couple that's about to come on, that's when the two of you met. And here I get emotional as I'm just introducing you. We're raw here in this show. Our goal is to have fun and to feel. But Weston lost his first wife during the childbirth process of their first child. And obviously, the magnitude of that statement just alone can sit. And the two of you met. So Kierazleah, his now wife, two met about 4 months after that process.
Wow,
And
I didn't even know it was that fast after.
Yes, and so going from, the hardest of lows and deepest lows, and then at the same time, new life, like we've talked about on the show.
Being able to fall in love again and all of that. Connor has been so incredible for me in my healing journey to be able to have support for me, what felt like the very first time. So Kierazleah, I just want to say props to you for coming into a family that was in devastating grief and being that person for Weston. That's really incredible.
Yeah, kind of cool. She had one little at home, and he had one little at home. So it's kind of interesting that his stories are. I'm just going to get you both up on stage. They basically have turned that now and have taken that story to, not be the story. The story is the afterwards and the finding joy after struggle and transformation and all of that process and all the highs and lows and the pains that all come with it. He's got a new book that's coming out that we'll talk about here in a little bit, and is on the speaking circuit, sharing his story and helping people grow with his own coaching program in a really cool way that we'll talk about. So please give me a huge, warm welcome to Weston and Kierazleah Brandon. Come on up. All right, let's roll. That was a fully
Thanks,
engaged
Hunter.
first, guys. I have yet to cry while giving an intro.
Wow.
Aw.
Yeah, so when you're giving the intro and you're already tearing up, I guess I cried in your intros, but
I lost count on the crying.
how are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Kierazleah, what do you think? Like, he signed up to be the speaker now. He's the one writing the books, doing stuff, and now you're
And
like,
we just
why do
got-
I have to be up
She
here?
just got dragged on today.
Are you all right doing
pretty
that?
much. I
you're-
told him that I didn't want to be front and center.
She told me, she says, if you ever bring me on stage in front of a camera, we're going to have problems.
Oh.
So pray for us.
And so
Okay,
you
after
bring
we
her.
talk about how good a relationship is.
Well, thank you for coming on our stage.
Yes. No, it is funny with the dynamic of this show because we interview a lot of people that one person might be an influencer or one person might have this, and then we're like, no, we want to see the couple. We want to see the dynamic because there might be one person that is more in the spotlight, like you just said, right? But both of you are going through it together. And specifically for you, like I feel like there are some things that we're going to be able to relate to in what we've chosen, right? And what you step into in relationships and know, hey, this isn't pretty. It isn't necessarily clean. There is some mess here, but you're choosing the mess, right? So thanks for being here. Thanks for being willing. Excited to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start. So typically on the show, we'll start with kind of like, how did the two of you meet? But as we said in the introduction, met just 4 months after, one of the major parts to your story. And so let's start there first. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your first marriage, getting pregnant, and the accident?
Yeah. So at the time this happened, I was actually living in Texas, and we're in Utah now. I'm born and raised in Utah, and so was my first wife. And I was in sales professions, and I did door-to-door sales for a summer right after we got married. But my first wife she was a pharmacy technician at a hospital, so she had a 7-on, 7-off schedule. And being away from this person I just fallen in love with for a week at a time, or like 9 days at a time, I was in Colorado doing it. I was like, no, I'm not doing that yet. So I pivoted and went to do higher ticket software sales. I sold mechanical engineering software, and that's what took me to Texas. They had an office there, and we were just like, let's go plan our own routes, let's go do something, just get away and be us, kind of a thing. And so I was pretty successful there. I was making decent amount of money, and we were comfortable for all intents and purposes. And we decided, I was like, all right, it's time to start a family. And so it took a couple of tries, but then one stuck, and we were able to get pregnant, and that was my son, Vance.
And how long were you guys married for at this point?
So this would have been 2018 when she got pregnant. We got married in 2017. So it was maybe about 18 months or so.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, my first wife and I got married 6 weeks after we met. I know we were talking, there's other episodes that it was fast.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole
That's
other
even
story.
faster than the other couple we just had on.
And we knew we were going to get married like really fast within a week also. So I don't know what it is. I just like lasso.
He knows.
Something like that. But anyway, so we're in Texas and she gets pregnant, and then, at the 20-week ultrasound, we find out we're having a boy.
And were you guys just so excited to be married and your life and having a baby together? Like, what were those emotions like?
Yeah, so excited. Like everything was going right for the most
Right.
part, I mean, marriage wasn't perfect. Neither of us had been married previously, so you're, kind of figuring out some relationships there, but nothing huge, like I was happy. We were very happy. And then at 25 weeks gestation, she had what they called an incompetent cervix, which kind of sounded judgmental to me at the time.
That's a weird
I had no idea
adjective.
what that meant. I was like, incompetent, excuse you, I think it works fine. But what that is, for people that don't know, is basically she dilated to like a 9 or a 10, but didn't go into labor. No contractions or anything,
Oh.
just door opens.
At 25 weeks?
At 25 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Way, way, way too early, right? So she goes up to the hospital, she goes on bed rest, and they're like, you're just gonna lay here until you have the baby. That could be tomorrow, that could be full term, no idea. Like fully bed rest, bedpan, the whole gear. She can't get up. And so I get permission from my work to work from home because I'm a lot closer to that hospital. And that was a really emotional time because she's stuck in bed and I'm having to work and go up in the evening to just see my wife every once in a while. And she was able to hold him in for another week. And while she was on bed rest, they gave her some steroids through an IV.
So she was holding her baby in for a week while she was dilated at a 10?
Yeah, it would fluctuate between like an 8 and a 10.
Wow.
She was up there pretty high. And who knows, her mother might call me and correct me on that when she hears this. It might be, but she was way too far. But so she held him in for a week and they gave her some steroids to kick his lungs into gear, make it develop faster. I have no idea what that is, but that's what I was told. And it worked, because then a week later, I get a call as I'm working from home, and she says, hey, the baby's coming. They're not going to wait for you, so you need to get up here really fast. And so I found out how fast my old truck could go, and I got up to the hospital, and I walked into the OR right as they were and it was an emergency C-section that they ended up having to do, because he was coming out breech. So I'll just get in there just as they're opening her up, and she's high as a kite on whatever happy gas they've got her on, and she's saying hilarious things, and it was quite an experience. And which we laughed about for a while after that. It was super fun. But then I got to see my son get removed, and he's 1 pound 13 ounces, and he's like small enough I could hold him in my hand. I'd never seen a baby that looked like that before. So honestly, it took me off guard when I saw that. I didn't know what I expected to see, but the only babies I had seen were full term and fat and swollen face and full term babies.
Yeah.
And then my son comes out as this little tiny wrinkly old man looking thing.
Like a little alien.
Like a little, he did. And we have little pictures of him, when he was that little. And I remember, I didn't feel like a dad when he came out, right? And I held a lot of, not resentment, but I didn't like the fact that when he came out, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, overwhelmingly in love with this child, because, and I found out after talking to lots of other new dads that was a common thing, because my wife had experiences with this child, feeling him, growing him and everything, and I had only just been hearing the reports, through the grapevine kind of a thing. So I'm just trusting that she's telling the truth, that there is a baby in there. And she's getting bigger, so it looks like it. So, and the sonogram shows a baby, so it must be a thing. But I quickly found out that I began to love this baby very, very quickly. That came quick. And this is actually a picture of my mother holding him. This is
He does look like a little alien.
Right? he's so cute though, and that's my first wife,
Is
Lauren.
this Lauren?
Yep, that's my first wife, Lauren, holding him. And that was that moment when she's high as a kite in this picture. And I remember she was like, there was another nurse there, and she's stroking this nurse's arm, and she's like, "Your skin is so soft." And she looks in her eyes, she's like, "Your eyes, oh my, they're so pretty." Like this, she's like looking at this angel. I mean, this nurse are like, "What is going on?" You know?
I want some of that stuff.
But that's kind of how she was. She was just super kind to everybody. And I think there's a couple other pictures in there if you go. Yeah, so this is a picture. This is me. You can see his hand here, fully wrapped around, only went around half my finger. Right?
Oh my gosh. And
you
he's
can
26 weeks at this point?
What?
He's 26-ish weeks?
Yep. This I don't know how many days after he was born this picture, but it was very, very quick.
Right.
This was within a couple days.
Right.
After he's
And
born.
he's 1 pound.
Yeah, and so you can kind of see on my face, I'm like, what is even happening? You know, and the miracle about this, another miracle about this is if you can see in the picture, he only has a CPAP mask on his nose. He doesn't have to have a breathing tube down his throat.
Wow.
And I mentioned he had to have steroids to kick his lungs in the air. That was the goal, that he wouldn't have to have a breathing tube. So that actually isn't in his mouth. It's just right over top of his nose. And
Oops. Hunter was getting fancy with this.
trying to
He
zoom
was.
in.
I
There we
was
go.
super impressed with him there for a minute.
There we go. Yeah, look how tiny he is. So he's just got this CPAP mask on his nose, and he didn't have any major health complications. So the only thing that we were told we were waiting for is he has to be able to eat as much food as he needs to on his own without he has a little feeding tube that's going kind of into his nose there.
And how is Lauren feeling at this time after just delivering her baby at 26 weeks?
She was over the moon in love with this baby. Like, so much so, and she was super, super excited and just all over him.
Was she excited the whole pregnancy?
Yeah, she was. This was her life's dream, was to become a mother. She didn't have like professional goals. She played a lot of softball. That was kind of her hobby. She played in college, but her I want to be a mother was the biggest thing that she wanted. So yeah, this happened, and then
Yeah, so then what happened? Tell us.
yeah, it was all. I want to say it was sunshine and rainbows because I was the breadwinner, and I'm like thinking, how the heck are we going to pay for all this? But I was like, that'll work itself out, right? There were some programs with Texas we actually qualified for Medicaid just based off of his birth weight. So like, there's going to be some help that we can get with that. But anytime, as far as I know, anytime you go to the hospital, you have a baby, they put these leg massagers on your leg. And Kierazleah had the same thing when she had our other kids. I think didn't you have them on one? Okay, whatever. I need to pay more attention. But I was told in the hospital, like, this is fairly common to do this, and they put these things on her leg to just massage her legs. And they said the reason for that is just to help blood clots to not form in your legs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. They're like, it's less than 1% chance that it'll happen.
It's probably because she had a C-section.
Yeah, that's probably why. Because after a surgery, you're more prone to blood clots just from the trauma of the surgery, right? And so they kind of said that, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll just kind of let that be. But 2 weeks later,
You guys are at home at this point?
Yeah, we were at home. So she got discharged from the hospital, within a day or two. And so she just had stitched up and just had to take it easy, no heavy lifting kind of a thing, And so 2 weeks later, I'm still working from home because my son's still in the NICU and he's going to be there for who knows how much longer, right? And so I'm working from home, and my wife calls me into the living room. She's sitting on the couch, and she's having trouble like catching her breath. She's feeling like almost hyperventilating, she thought she was having a panic attack, and which I believed her because she was on anxiety medications just as a thing. Even before she was pregnant, she struggled with that. But then with the birth, the C-section, like everything going on, like obviously that's super stressful. I'm super stressed. I'm surprised I'm not having a panic attack, right? And so she's like, I just need to have you help me calm down, and hold me for a minute so I can chill out. But unfortunately, she never got her breath back. It just got worse and worse over the seconds and minutes that passed. And eventually she asphyxiated in my arms as I was holding her. And what happened was she got a pulmonary embolism, which for anybody that doesn't know, it's a blood clot that usually starts in the deep leg veins. That's why they put the things on. That wasn't enough. She got one, and they've even found the scar tissue when they did the medical examination. It traveled up her legs and went through her heart and got stuck in her lungs. And that's what a pulmonary embolism is. It goes right through your heart and gets stuck in your lungs because the blood vessels get really small in your
That's why
lungs.
she was having a hard time breathing?
Yep. So then basically it got stuck in her lungs and it stopped the blood from flowing through her lungs. So she's taking as deep a breath as possible but not absorbing any oxygen, just slowly dwindling. So I got to watch that happen right in front of me.
In your arms.
In my arms. And I was on 911 at the time it was happening because she felt something was wrong, and there's a whole bunch of other things that your body does that I got to witness, unfortunately, when you start to suffocate like that. A lot of horrific things. I've never seen a movie where somebody gets choked out or something that it actually looks like what it really looks like. That was some things, some images I had to process, you know. Yeah. But was on the phone 911 and I ended up having to do CPR on her, and luckily EMTs were really close. They came, you know, within a couple of minutes, and they took over. They put her on a stretcher, got her over, and they said, "Don't follow us because we're going to run red lights and sirens. You know, don't give us another thing to respond to while we're going to the hospital." And so we went to the hospital, and 30 minutes later, they're still doing CPR on her. And kind of at that moment, I knew, I was like, this really isn't good. That's way too long to do CPR, right? And I had a moment in there that completely changed my life inside the waiting room at the ICU. And I can't talk about any of my story or anything what I talk about without talking about God and my relationship with Him. Yeah. And this was a point, this is like a turning point. This is like, if I need God to talk to me at any point in my life, this is it, right? And I had served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, spent 2 years teaching people about all this, about what happens after we die, like why we're here, and all of these things. And I believed it, and I had had experiences that I knew it was true. But this called it all into question. And I was like, I need to know right the freak now if this is legit. And if you're actually listening to me, if you actually care. And I didn't have any scriptures with me or anything, but God had always talked to me throughout my life before that, either through music or through reading in His Word. And I had my phone with me, and I didn't feel like playing music in this situation, so I just opened up an app that I had on my phone that has the Bible and the Book of Mormon and these other things on there. And I kind of said that, and I probably didn't say it in the nicest way, but I was like, I need to hear from you right now. So I just closed my eyes and started tapping on my phone and see where it showed up.
Wow.
You know? And
I've done this.
And it opened up and I didn't choose any particular book. I just hit scriptures. I was like, all right, whatever one, here we go. And it opened up in the Book of Mormon, which is a book of scripture that we use in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in addition to the Bible. And it opened up to the Book of Alma. And when I opened my eyes, it was Alma chapter 40, which is all about resurrection and the afterlife. And the very first verse that I look at when I open my eyes is verse 1. And how it starts is, I might have to paraphrase a little bit here, but it says, "My son, I perceive that thy mind is worried concerning the resurrection of the dead." That's the first thing that I see. And like the chills that I just got over me, like that
I
was
have chills everywhere.
this was only like what I just felt there was just a tiny piece of what I felt in that moment. That I was like, all of that kind of nonverbal communication was, she's not going to make it. Yes, it's true. Yes, you can lean on it. Yes, I'm still here. You know, and I was like, holy crap. And so I kept reading, and every verse was like the next question that would come into my mind, the next verse answered. And then the next question would come to mind, the next verse answered. And that happened for like half the book. And then I sat there, and this was just like he was in the room, you know.
He was.
And then that kind of subsided, and I'm like, well, this still sucks, and I'm still here,
Yeah.
you know. And then I had to, you know, go in and into the ICU and see her, and then 12 hours later, I was signing papers to facilitate organ donation, you know, and everything after that. So then I had to live in the NICU kind of by myself, because I don't say I did this by myself because I had so much family there present. My first wife's family was there. My parents flew down. There was people from our church congregation that were helping us. There's so many people around me helping me, giving me space to do what I needed to do. But unfortunately, with any kind of grief, I'm sure you experience this too, like people will be there, but then not because they don't want to be there anymore, but they have to go back to their own lives. They have to retreat a little bit because they have families too. Like they'll be their support, but they can't be there every day. Right?
For me, I noticed when I lost my son, I had so much support, but especially at the beginning, right, where it was almost overwhelming. And then 6 months down the line, like, people are still there, but it's like,
It's different.
yeah.
Yeah. And so my parents have to go back to Utah. My dad has a job, they have lives with her, so they have to fly back. And my in-laws have stuff going on. As much as they're hurting losing their daughter, they had things they had to do too.
And your life has completely changed.
Yeah, it's completely
Everyone
new.
else's lives is the same, and yours has been completely flipped.
Yeah. So it was a weird time where I'm at home, and my in-laws were staying with me pretty much this whole time. They would go out for a while, and they had to go. They had an RV at the time, and their life plan at the moment was like nomading around. So they had other things that were going. We had to go get this done and go get this done. So they'd be gone for a little bit and then come back, and gone for a little bit and come back. But there were still moments that even though they were physically present, I felt completely alone, right? And I'm sure they did too. And then there were times I'd go up to the hospital, into the NICU, just to sit there with my son and hold him, because, again, I kind of felt guilty for what I felt was a lack of fatherly love for this little baby at the time. So I was like, I need to intentionally build this relationship with my kid. So I went and tried to spend more time with him. But it also was a little bit difficult because going there and seeing him was bringing back a lot of the pain.
And they're in the same hospitals?
Yeah, it was. Well, my wife, they took her to a different hospital for her thing. But still,
It's
there
still
was,
a hospital.
I had spent
I
so much
wondered,
time with her there. And so it was a weird time where I was like, I wanted to be connected with my son and I wanted to be connected with her, but it was so heavy that I wanted to step away. I wanted to float. So I drowned myself in distractions. I did a lot of retail therapy. I bought a bunch of knives. I spent so much money trying to, just feel something other than this heavy weight. And then eventually I realized that if I was gonna give my son the life that he deserved, biologically I am not wired to be a nurturing mother. And that's not anything against me. It's just not who I'm made to be. And his grandmothers, both my mother and my first wife's mom, they could do that a little bit better than I could to a certain extent, but also, they have jobs and they have other things. So I was like, if I'm going to give him the best opportunity, I need to at least keep myself open to another relationship, even though I really don't want to.
Wow.
But I at least knew that pretty quickly, and I also got a pretty strong feeling from what I feel like was from my first wife there, that she was either aware of the plan, like if there was somebody else planned for it, or she had found who it was, or maybe she had found some good option. I don't know. It just kind of felt like she was involved in whatever that was going to be.
She was looking for a partner for you and then also a mother to her son.
I'm sure.
And she wasn't only giving you permission, but it sounded
was,
like she was saying,
pushing
I'm
me.
helping. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't know exactly what that looked like. I was like, okay, I at least need to keep myself open for that. So when Kierazleah comes into this picture, I moved back to Utah because I was like, all of our support, all my family's there. So I moved back in with my parents into my basement bedroom that I lived in when I graduated high school, start over kind of thing, but now with a baby. And so there's this dating app called Mutual, which a lot of LDS people use. And in there, I was like, I'm not going to hide any that you're smiling because
I'm so excited to get you into this conversation here, Kierazleah.
I feel like I'm doing there's so much backstory. I have to do a lot of the talking, but she'll come in a minute. But I was like, I'm not going to hide any of this. This is this is the situation, right? So I put pictures of me and I put pictures of Vance, even from in the hospital. And as much as the character limit would allow, I put the whole,
oh
where
my
we
gosh,
were at.
this story's on a dating app.
This story's on a dating app. So.
Here's my child, currently 30 weeks, and this is what
I
I'm
was
going
like,
through.
I don't know why I'm doing this, but I feel like I need to, so come save us, ? Or something. I didn't say that, but that's kind of what it felt like I was doing. But then, so I was like, well, I have to swipe if there's going to be any matches. So I go through, I'm like, no. And I get all the way to the end and I said no to everybody. And that was kind of a moment for me. I was like, wait a minute. I'm saying no because they're not my wife. I'm looking for somebody specific that I'm not going to find. So luckily for me, they're like, hey, there's this, I looked in there and there's a premium version you can pay for, so you don't have to swipe, it'll just tell you who swipes on you. And I was like, take my money. There we go. And I'm just going to turn notifications off. I'm not going to look at this for a few days. And so that's what I did. I paid the money. I was like, thank the Lord, like, there's that option. And so I didn't look at it for a minute. And then I don't know if my mother brought it up or what happened, but I was like, I need to check this. I feel like I need to check it. So I was like, we'll see who freaking crazy women are wanting a piece of this. And so I opened that up and I'm like, there are 5 crazy women that want a piece of this. This is, wow, okay. So I initiated a conversation with each of them, I'm like, hey, who are you? What do you do? And I don't remember any of their names except hers. But these women that I started having a conversation with blew my mind just in the texting conversations we have, how emotionally mature they came across and kind of some of the background there. There was one of them that was going to school to be a therapist. And so, like, initially I was like, that's probably good for me. But then I was like, but then I got talking to her, and her picture, at the time, she doesn't have them now, but she had braces, and for some reason I was like, whoa, that's cute. I don't know. I'm not trying to give off any, like, pedophile vibes or anything like that, but for some reason about that, I was like, wow, she's really freaking pretty. So we got talking, and in arranging some first dates with some of these people, the first one that ended up going through is with Kierazleah. And after we have our first date, I had an experience where going on these dates, I was rather upset with God at the moment, and because I was like, if you are going to take my person, you had darn well better have something to fit in that hole, So I was still talking to him because I remember at some point in my life, somebody told me, even if you're upset with God, you need to let him know because he can handle it. So that's the only thing I was going on. I'm like, I'm just yelling at him, but I'm praying to him. Like, I know you can take this, so I'm going to freaking let you have it. And that was a very therapeutic experience for me doing that alone. But before I went on the date with Kierazleah, I prayed and I says, I don't know what stuff you've got her doing on the other side, but I'm going to call in some PTO, and she needs to come with me on this because I don't trust myself to be in the headspace to make a good decision. Or if someone's just reciprocating love, I'm just going to be like, love me, and like follow whoever gives that. So I need you to let her come with me so she can like give me a yes or a no.
You asked God for Lauren to come with you on your first date.
That
is so cute.
So, and after our first date's over, we had a funny, the story. I asked her, I was like, hey.
Here, let's time out here.
Yeah.
Hold up. I want this story. Kierazleah, you're scrolling.
I know. I
hold on. We gotta get back to here. Yeah, so you're scrolling. You got profile coming up, and you see this story.
I'll be honest, I don't remember swiping on him.
Not what I was expecting. I knew
that was something good. She doesn't remember it at all.
Best message ever.
I was going to school full time and working full time. I was really done with dating. I felt like a lot of people on that dating app really just wanted to hook up. And so I was just so done with it. And most of the time I just like mindlessly swiped,
But you're mindless swiping yes.
Apparently.
Most people mindlessly swipe. It's no.
Well, it's kind of like I don't know. I'd look through, I'd glance at their bio, whatever, and their pictures and stuff, decent enough, whatever.
You got decent enough.
I feel so objectified.
No, but this is actually a big deal because maybe this doesn't happen if she's reading the story, she's like,
okay. I was definitely open to dating someone who had kids or had been married.
And that's because some of your background, right?
Yeah, but where was I going with that? I had deleted the app because I was just done with dating. Yeah. I was going to school, working and stuff. I was just gonna concentrate on that. And then I kind of felt, I guess, the prompting to download the app again. Aww. And I told myself, I'm giving it 24 hours. Aww. Whatever guy initiates a conversation, asks me out, whatever first.
You only had it for 24 hours? Stop.
I downloaded it after I got off of work that day, and he messaged me I don't know, it was later that night.
It was 2 o'clock in the morning because I had to get up with my son woke up and needed to feed him. So I'm sitting there putting him back to bed, and I'm like, hey, well, now I'm not tired. I'm like, well, now's as good a time as any to check to see if anybody wants a piece of this
So
pie.
I was one of those crazy women. So I woke up to that message, and he was the only one that had messaged me that I had swiped or anything, on the app in those hours. And so that just kind of.
Oh my gosh.
So then you read
Because
his.
it was mutual too, yeah.
So then you read his bio, and what are you feeling?
I don't know. I guess to me, I'm just like, oh, he's got a little baby. Like, I've always wanted to be a mom, and like, I guess that's not the traditional way of becoming a mom, getting a
like,
But it didn't
stepson,
scare
but-
you. It almost like drew you in.
Yeah, it didn't scare me. I had been married before and divorced, and so I don't know. I guess that just opened up. I don't think that had I been married and gone through a divorce myself, I don't think that I would have been open
Right.
to that type of relationship.
But you were looking for
So-
something real, like what you said, and you could probably sense that in him.
And I knew that I don't know. I felt like because of what he had been through and that he had a kid already, and that it was so fresh, I felt like maybe he wasn't there to just mess around. I felt like he was serious and that I wasn't going to be wasting time. Neither of us were. So if it was going to work out, then it was going to work out, and I didn't have to sit there and wonder if it was going to work out.
I love that actually, right? Because, I mean, a 2 a.m. response on a dating app is a booty call. That's what 2 a.m. means, right? But you're literally up at 2 a.m. because you have this newborn that you're taking care of, right? And you're totally right. That was his reality. He wasn't going to go out and hit the bars and talk to people or go to big events and find some people. It wasn't his time of life, right? You were serious, and you were too. I think we connected in that same way of like, I think when you find the right person, it's like all the games and all the rules that might be there just fly right out the window because you both are ready. And so I think it's really cool to point out you appreciated that in him, even if that might have meant that it came with a lot, right? And we know that.
He can relate to that.
Yeah. Let's hear about the first date. So you invite, let's set the scene. You invite your first wife who had just passed to come on a date with you to help you find the mother of that child.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. So we met up at Texas Roadhouse, and I mentioned retail therapy. I had always wanted a motorcycle, so I just went and bought a motorcycle. I was like, I'm showing
motorcycle
up
and knives.
in my cowboy boots and my motorcycle, and if you don't like it, then tough one. Like, this is like,
I liked
It
it.
is so
she
not,
liked it.
it's very much not hard to profile you, We
Yeah,
got this
I'm
guy
like,
figured
this
out.
is me. Like, it's all written right here. And what she didn't tell you was that she wanted to date a tall guy, and she had kept getting short guys.
Oh, yeah.
Not that being a short guy is anything bad, but that's just what she wanted.
I'm short, so I
she's-
kept getting guys like shorter than me, and I'm like, well, I mean,
She
personality's better, but
always
like,
wanted to be able to hug a man and put her head on his chest.
One can only dream.
So I was the answer to that prayer, because I'm 6'2" and I show up on cowboy boots, which is making me another inch and a half taller anyways. But I had no idea, of course, this. So then she said, well, describe that when you first saw me, like your thoughts.
I don't know. I just remember walking up, and it was clear that it was you because you were like, you had your helmet and everything, so I knew you were on your bike. Anyway, and I just remember walking up, and I checked you out, and I was like, oh, nice. He's wearing cowboy boots. And then you stood up, and I was like, and he's tall.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
first impression, I was like, nice.
So I was off on the right foot, and I didn't even know it. But we went to Texas Roadhouse. We had dinner there, and then we had plans to go do hatchet throwing at some place that was close by. And then after we got done with that, we didn't have any other plans. We were like, we're hitting it off really well. What can we keep doing? There's a Cold Stone right down the road. I was like, why don't you hop on the bike with me? Because I'm like, maybe she'll hug me at this point. Nope. She doesn't touch me. On the back of a motorcycle, you
That's
know, normally
dangerous.
they're going to be like, her
I've
knees
good
would
abs.
at least touch me, like on my hips or something like that. No, she's like, I don't know how this guy's going to feel with this situation. So she's like, spread, like, don't touch him kind of thing the whole time. And she even did that on her second day, which was a motorcycle ride up the canyon and down. She didn't touch me the entire time.
To be fair, I didn't know where he was at with like touching and stuff. He had just lost his wife like
Oh.
recently, so I was like, I don't know how he is with touch. Like now
That's
that I
fair.
look back at it, I'm like, okay, he's asked me to ride on his motorcycle, like duh, you know. But like in the moment, I'm like, I don't know, like where do I?
Yeah.
I don't know how much he's okay with.
So was that really in your head?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Like, this is someone who just lost her spouse. Did that come up in the conversation? How quick?
Not in that conversation. It was, I don't remember when we talked about
It was I think it was like probably later that day actually.
Yeah, it's
When we
like
got
it's the
back.
elephant in the room.
Oh yeah, because then we got back. I think we started like and ate something, and then
Yeah.
I think I called it out. I was like, "So are you sore? Because you like didn't touch me the whole time. That's gotta be
Well-
a workout."
No, it was later that night. Like after our second date, we kind of went back to his house, his parents' house, and we had been talking. He kind of just like, all right, well, so he basically told me, I want to be in a relationship with you. Are you in or what? You know, and anyway, it was kind of after that, and then it was later when we were texting. He was like, because I was on the opposite end of the couch too during that conversation, and he's like, he said something along the lines of like, next time are you gonna sit next to me on the couch or something like
Are
that?
you still
And
gonna be like over there awkward?
so then that's when that kind of came up and
But
talk
this,
about touch.
this first date, so we go to Cold Stone on the motorcycle. We eat, and I'm all up in my head. I completely forgot to pay for the ice cream, so I just left her standing there at the register and walked away. And then she's like, "Hey, what are you?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry," and I had to go back and pay for the ice cream. And then we get back to the motorcycle. We go back to where her car is, and we're talking for a minute, and I'm like, "I had tons of fun. Do you want to go on another date?" And then, what did you say?
I said, yeah, do you?
I was like, well, duh. That's why I asked you. So I just kind of gave her this look. I'm like, yeah? Yeah, I do. And so she goes and so we hug, and she gets back in the car, and she drives away. And as I'm watching her drive away, I said out loud, actually, I think I did say it out loud. And I was like, well, babe, what do you think? And the moment I said that, I got hit super hard. Like,
Stop.
yes, like I got an approval there. I don't believe that God will tell you you have to marry this person. I don't think that's what I got. And I think telling somebody else, like, God told me we need to get married is probably a rather manipulative thing to do. But what I got was basically like, yes, I approve. This is, if it's reciprocated, feel good about going forward with it, So I was like, all right, cool. So I go back to my house, and my mom asked me, like, so how do you say her name? And I'm like, ooh. I can't remember how to pronounce it. And then she's like, oh, well, whatever, but how did it go? And I was like, well, if it keeps going the direction that today did, then I'm going to marry her. And my mom's like, she just shook her head, because that's kind of how it went with my first wife, too. She's like, how do you always know? I was like, well, I don't know we're getting married. I'm just saying if it keeps going the way today did, then I'm down for that. And so we arranged our second date, and then she had a similar feeling pretty quick, too.
Aww.
Yeah, it was, we had the day after our first date, he had LASIK, so otherwise we were going to have our second date that day. But so then it was the following day, we had our second date, and from there on, we spent like every single day together. So first date was on a Thursday. That following Sunday, I was over at his house, and we stayed up all night talking. And the following morning, I had work, so I left. And it was like, as I was at a stoplight leaving his house, and it just all of a sudden hit me. It was out of nowhere. And it just all of a sudden hit me, and I was like, I'm gonna marry him. And of course, I didn't know where he was at. We hadn't openly talked about where it was going, other than just,
That was a fun conversation.
and so I was kind of scared there, and I was like, well, I can't even tell him how I'm feeling. It's literally only been a few days, and he just lost his wife, so.
Meanwhile, I'm having the same thoughts. I'm like, if I tell her this, she's gonna freaking run.
Yeah.
Well, props to you guys for being open to love even after loss. And then you said that you had a divorce. So, that takes a lot of heart and a lot of balls.
Yeah. Let's dive into some of the lessons learned from this, right? So one, it's crazy to, hear that story and walk through it all, but there's a lot of dynamics at play, right? Like there's a new child, there's grieving the loss, there's stepping into a new family. What stood out is like maybe the biggest learning lessons that you took away from that initial time of kind of when you started to join his team, we'll say when you became fully engaged with each other, right? Like when the two of you were there, what did this process teach you about life, about grief, about love?
I'll let you go first. Because I want to hear this too.
I don't know. I guess I need to collect my thoughts here, man.
It's all right. It's a big question. Take a breath.
It is a big question. I don't know. I guess for me, I mean, it was a big thing stepping into, you know,
Yeah.
you know, 'cause you don't have any kids biologically,
No.
right? It's a big thing to accept stepping into that role.
As a parent.
As a parent, yeah, and it was a lot for me to navigate and for us to navigate together, figuring out how, there's a lot, honestly, of our dating time and when we were first married that, I mean, you love each other, you know, and you focus so much on each other. It took me a minute to actually fully step into that role of mom. It's like I cared for him, you know,
For the baby?
and I loved him, yeah. But I was so focused on my relationship and marriage with him that I almost feel like I was going through the motions with Vance, is his name. And so, like, I loved him and I cared for him, but so it took me a minute to figure that part of our life.
Right, and I'm sure you're having a lot of conflicting emotions too, because it's like his mom had just passed. So then, like, where do you step in, and where is your permission
Exactly.
to
And I'm
even
still
step in
having
as that
moments
role?
where, you know, I'll wake up from a dream and I'm crying because I miss her.
Right,
you
and then
know,
he's
And
going
that
through
was hard.
intense grief.
Yes, I was constantly, I felt less than her, you know, and he's never held me in a competition with her, ever, you know. It was always me putting myself there, you know, and that's something that I really, for the first probably couple years of our marriage, that I had to continue to work through, because I was constantly just thinking, oh, he misses her, he wishes that she were here instead of me, he probably thinks that she would be a better mom than me, you know, just all of these thoughts. And so that was a big thing that was a really hard thing for me for the first while, for me to work through, I guess.
For sure.
So that was really hard, but I feel like it ultimately has brought us closer going through that. I've had to voice a lot of my feelings with him and stuff. And through all of that, he would ask me how I was doing
Right,
with it,
because
you know?
his feelings are totally valid, right? His grief and everything he's working through, but then so are yours. Like, he's over here mourning his last wife and missing her, and he's allowed to miss her, but then still love you and choose you at the same moment.
Yeah, so it was a lot to work through, but I don't know, I feel like we're obviously in a good place now, and I don't have that struggle anymore. I feel like I've stepped into my own place, you know, and we've had 2 more kids of our own.
Yeah, how did that change when you had, so the 2 of you now have kids, there's 3 of you, right? So there's Vance and then the other two kids. How did that change for you feeling in that role? Did it change your relationship with the other kids at all?
Honestly, I feel like having our daughter, so she's the middle, I feel like women naturally have the nurturing, we have nurturing in us, you know, so like, it's
Even
not that I
before
was
we
a
have
bad
babies.
mom, yeah. So it's not that I was a bad mom, but I feel like as soon as I had my daughter, it was like, it kick-started more in me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something kind of woke up inside you a
Yeah.
little more.
Yeah, and
I
so
noticed
it
that.
was, I don't know, I just felt like I was able to step more into that mother role, even for Vance. And so, I mean, I've always looked at him as my son. He's mine. You know, I didn't give birth to him, but he's mine. And I'm the only mom that he's known. We talk about Lauren. He asks questions about her. We have a picture of her in our home. You know, we're very open. He knows her. But I'm mommy, you know. But I feel like as soon as I had our daughter, yeah, I was just able to step into that mother role better.
Wow.
I was able to just be the better mom that all my kids need.
Aw.
And I should say, from my perspective, she's a freaking rock star mom even before we were married. That was extremely attractive to me, how naturally she took care of a baby when I...
Advance.
What?
Advance.
Yeah, advance. And like, it gave me also a little bit more space to try to get back to what I felt like my divine role was supposed to be as a provider, right? Like, I'm trying to provide my child everything that he's going to need. And that was kind of honestly my approach to dating, was trying to be a provider to a thing that he would need. I wasn't really thinking of myself at the time, though very quickly I realized, like, oh, I need this too, you know. But to see how she took care of my son, I never got the vibes from her and how she treated my son or how she took care of him that she felt any kind of disconnected from him. Like, she dove in there and you know, was in the trenches and took care of him. Honestly, she took way more physical care of my son than I did, you know. And she stayed at our, like, she rented a basement apartment from a family, and she basically, like, she didn't spend a whole lot of time there because, you know, we'd stay up so much talking at night, and she's basically taking care of the baby while we're up talking, you know, and I'm just there watching it. You know, it's kind of how that all went. So
I ended up quitting my job before we even got married so I could be home with Vance
Oh my
Yeah.
instead of
gosh.
working.
and so she went all in.
And were you
on
guys
it.
having conversations at this time about you stepping in as his mom?
Yeah, at that
Yeah,
time
that
we
was,
talked about marriage.
we had talked about marriage
That
within the first week
conversation,
after our
that's a-
first date.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's go to that same question for you then, Weston, and tell me how it's catapulted you into what you're doing now, right? Because you've taken this and you have now decided not to just stay quiet, to actually tell your story and to talk about it and use it as a way to help people, which obviously we have huge respect for. So tell us, what did you learn through that and how has it changed your course?
God, if I had to boil it down to one statement, it'd be clarity comes through committed movement. And that might sound a little bit cryptic, but I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, right? Like, in that moment, holding my son at the hospital or even at home after he was discharged from the hospital, like, the biggest question is, what do I do now? You know, and that's a big question that everybody asks in some point in their life, you know, whether they lose a spouse or not. They graduate high school and that's a question, like, what do I do now? You know? But what I learned through the process was that I wouldn't get the clarity that I wanted until I figured out kind of where the trumpet was calling from, some way off in the distance. I didn't know exactly where it was, but I could get, like, it's generally this way, right? And I learned that if I just put my head down and moved in whatever general direction that felt as fast as I could, then everything came into place that needed to be, you know. And she was the first huge piece of that. And that's where I was like, okay, I guess this system works. Like, figure out and just freaking go. And then it comes together, you know. And that's what I talk about now. Is the biggest lesson that I learned was what that committed movement even looks like. And if you don't mind, I'll share a little bit more kind of when I wrote the book, and as I was writing the book about what I learned and how, you know, I climbed out of this. I should also say that the only reason I think I was able to do that was because so many people supported me and gave me this space, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, to be able to do so, right? I don't think there's any self-made men out there, really. I'm certainly not one. And what I came up with in the book as I was writing everything, I'm like, all these things that I'm super passionate about teaching these guys that are coming into these careers. I was in sales at the time. I actually completely changed careers. I didn't do sales after that. My mind was busted. I couldn't handle pressure sales quotas anymore. So I decided, I was like, the trumpet that's kind of calling me is being a provider, and I need security. And my father was in the trades. I talked to him about it. So I pivoted. I went back to school. I went to trade school, and I got into HVAC and refrigeration. So now I fix stuff, right? And now kind of bringing all those worlds together, these guys would come in to both when I was in sales before this happened, but then also in working with the blue collar stuff, these guys would come in, not knowing anything about it. And I had become pretty good at it pretty fast. So they would have guys ride with me and I'd get to train them. And I quickly learned, and there were multiple guys that I've been able to train, but all of them to some degree, I realized like there's sometimes some character development that has to happen before the actual practical knowledge can really stick. So a lot of our conversations initially were like, in that field, there's a lot of electrical stuff we have to do. So we're talking about electrical theory and all these kinds of things and how things work. But then the conversation soon shifted. As I was seeing how they worked, I could start to like almost read between the lines about how their childhood was.
Wow.
And about how their relationships with people were. And I started asking questions. I'm like, if you don't mind, I'm going to make some bold assumptions about your upbringing and you tell me if I'm right or not. And I would say this and I'd say this. And they're like, how the freak do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I can read it off of you. And so then as some of these conversations started happening, and I'm like, all these things that I started feeling really passionate about teaching these guys, if I could put it into a system, what would that be? So honestly, I used, at this time, I had kind of got the calling and then the feeling that I needed to share this, but I had no idea what it was necessarily. And I signed up for a speaker academy thing and was going in there, and they're like, hey, you're going to get up in 3 minutes and give us what your keynote is, like an overview. I'm like, I have no idea. I have no clue. So this guy's sitting there helping me. He's like, here, let's just throw it to ChatGPT real quick. Like, what do you know? I'm like, so I'm like word vomiting, like what I'm passionate about talking about. She's like, let's see if we can come up with an acronym or something like that, and come up with these other ways. And I'm like, as he hands me the computer, I'm like, that's not quite it, that's not quite it, that's not quite it. And then I finally moved some things around, and then I saw it and I hit it. I'm like, there it is. Like that encompasses everything. And the word was drive. And I broke that down into discover, resolve, invest, visualize, and elevate. And all of those layers build off of each other, right? But there are some core layers that are close. And in my book, I talk about how we can, instead of pursuing success, we attract it, right? We really only have to go halfway, because if we're doing it right, the right things will come to us. And that was the whole like visualize part of that, right? But I was like, really what you have to do first is you have to discover some things about yourself. Discover, Simon Sinek's famous for doing the like find your why, right? And that's a pretty common thing.
Discover your passions.
Yeah,
What do you
discover
even
all
want?
these things. And I never really liked, for some reason, the question find your why. I'm like, my why is I'm a dad, like duh, But as I dug deeper into it, I was like, really, when I'm trying to find my why, I'm trying to answer the question, what hails you? And when I say like there's a trumpet off there calling you somewhere, like that's what's hailing you. You got to figure out what that is. And that can change over time, right? There's going to be one big one, obviously being a father and a provider and a dad and a husband are like the big things, but then there's other things that I can kind of connect to that, right? And then once you discover some of those things, you're going to discover things that you don't like about yourself, right? This whole, you can tell me if you had this experience or not, but I felt like when I lost my wife, I got thrown into the engine room of my soul. I was like, I can see what's in here, and I have an opportunity to either take a good look around and decide whether I like what's in here or not, or I can quickly leave and shut the door and not want to look at it, right? And I recognized I was in that piece of my soul, and I decided to take a really good look around at what was in there and decide what I was going to keep, what I was going to clean up, what was I going to throw away.
Wow.
And I knew, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be in here forever in this kind of deep feelings inside of myself. So I need to make a map on how to get back here. Wow. And so as
I was not
we
thinking
started
that,
going
I'll
through
tell
this
you.
dating stuff,
He's a little more of an engineer than you are.
Yeah. I remember just shutting that door.
So I started thinking about like, okay, what kind of a thought process am I using? Where am I spiritually? Where am I emotionally when I feel like I have access to see this part of myself? And how can I get back here again? And that's where resolve comes from. There's two different kind of sides to resolve. One is just resolve to go, right? Resolve to head that way as fast as you can and not stop, like buffalo running through a storm, right? Instead of being a cattle that run away from storms. That's an easy concept to understand. It might be a little bit harder in practice to develop that. That's more mental, strength work that you have to do. But then the other side of resolve is to resolve those things that are inside of yourself that aren't in harmony with whatever you're trying to pursue, right? So you have to stay aligned with your goals. And I learned a lot of stuff about myself that I had wounds even from my childhood, outside of obviously the big one, I lost my wife. That was like huge, overarching, this is the big thing right in front of my face right now. But as I started to shift that over, I found so much more down inside of this. The last episode you talked with Hunter about pornography addiction, right? And I struggle with the same thing. And I learned through talking to so many other men, like, there's probably the vast majority of us have had some type of issue with that, right? And I had to discover, like, where does that come from? And where do these come from? Where do these feelings come from? And I had to dive inside of myself and figure a lot of that out. And then the I being invest is, I just say jump far. Like, once you figure out kind of what ails you and you're working on this stuff and you're kind of getting your mind and your heart in, you know, in sync with each other.
Aligned.
And, you know, your frequency is strong and stable. Then once you get that, then it's time to invest in yourself in whatever way that looks like for you, right? So you jump and you jump far. When I changed careers, I took a student loan out, I went back to school, kind of put myself in a do or die situation, right? I have to make this work. And then to make it work, that's where the visualize comes in. Like, I had to think of, okay, my goal is to be a husband and a father and a good one, but also to make enough money that we're comfortable and we're not stressed. Once I've made it there, how does that feel? Once I've made it there, who am I? How am I different then than I am right now? And I need to make that version of me who I am right now so that I can sustain that reality. And I don't, you know, if I don't make that who I am now, then that's never going to happen. And I have to see that. And so I intentionally kept that in my mind as vividly as I possibly could and tried to make myself feel all the time what it'll feel like once I've made this goal and intentionally feel gratitude for it. And then the E, elevate, I just think that's the catalyst to making everything happen as fast and as boldly as possible because, like I said, God is the biggest piece of my life that has helped me to do everything, and I believe His work and His glory is to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man and bring them back to Him. And if I can make what my goal is to be in line with His goal, then we're working together, right? Then He's in line with what I'm doing, and He's totally willing to help out. If my goal is to do something that's going to hurt some of His children, probably not so much, right? But if Him helping me get what I want helps Him help His other kids too, then He's going to be all in on that. Yeah. And
no, I love that. I think so much comes from what you just said right there, and I love that when you have something like what happened to you, you have no choice but to go within, right? Yeah. You have no choice but to say, what am I going to do with this, and what does that look like? And I think it's cool to see, you know, you do a show like this and you see different perspectives, you see different ways people talk about the same things, right? And so what's interesting is, like, you're talking right there, it's prayer, it's manifestation, it's faith, it's belief in a higher power, but wrapped in a little bit of an engineer, right? That he's like saying, I went in with my soul and I found a map and I came back with this, and here's the way to do it, the action plan. And
that's awesome.
And that will attract those people that think in that same way or that resonate on that same frequency. I mean, she's got a couple friends and they talk spirituality, and it's like they're so woo-woo and talking about the planets and the stars or whatever it might be, but that resonates with a group, right, in the same way. And so I love anyone that's able to take their challenges, take their trials, take what life has dealt them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and do something with it to give back, to help other people. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate you having on the show. I'll give you the chance to do the WTF minute in a minute there. Kierazleah, is there anything you want to say kind of in wrap up or close to what he's doing now and like going from this and now sharing?
I mean, not really. It's been a wild few months. It was, I don't know, obviously it's been up and down for me. It was, he came home one day and just like, all right, this is what we're doing. Life's going to change, and he wasn't lying. He's been going.
I did tell her that
and
day.
And now you're on stage too.
That was when she's like, okay, but I ain't doing this.
Yes, it didn't take
like,
very
I'm
long.
home taking care of kids. That's my role.
Yes. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Here on this show, every time we do one of these interviews, anyone that pours into us, we want to pour back into them. So we do it in a pretty cool way. We call it WTF, worth the follow, your 60 seconds, right? To be able to share in a minute what you do, how you can help people. Do it right here in this camera, because we purposely do it at 60 seconds so we can put this on social media, and tell them what you do, how they can find you, why it matters, whatever you want. Right there, Weston. Oh yeah, we got to set a timer.
You got to give me a go.
Here we go. Ready, go.
What I'm trying to do now for other people is to share my hell and how I found my heaven, and help other people to do the same thing, to figure out what that looks like for them. The book that I wrote is called The Overhaul, because that's what I felt like I had to do with my life. I had to completely overhaul everything. And it's fixing your mindset and driving success. And now it's kind of branching out into coaching too. I talk about 10x your life where it matters most. And that's what I try to share with the book. That's what I try to share with the coaching. That's what I go around and talk to people about now. I'm going to a high school, in a couple of days to share this with people that are graduating from high school. Because while the perspective is unique, the problem is very, very common. And that's what I try to help people figure out.
I love that. They can find you online. It's westonbrandon.com, right?
Yep, westonbrandon.com. The socials are just at westonbrandonspeaker.
I love it. And you did that right on a minute with me giving the call to action at the end. I had to give you a sense. I just teased. All right, you have a gift for them?
Yes,
right?
yes. So I created a jewelry brand called OSHA Chains. And my piece that I focus on is a butterfly necklace. And the butterfly means a lot to me. It's a symbol of hope, it's a symbol of love, and it's a symbol of connection for me to my son Romeo, who passed on a few years ago. So I think it's so beautiful, Kierazleah, that you've walked into this family who has gone through so much, who has lost your ex-wife, and then also your son's
Former
mother.
wife.
Yeah.
Late wife.
Late wife, former wife, and then your son's mother, and being able to step into that role as his now wife, partner, and then a mother to a son is incredible. Like for me, being able to be with Connor and how much he's helped me and supported me has been incredible for my journey. So just a huge thank you, honestly, for being willing to do that and being as amazing as you are. So I want to give you this butterfly necklace.
I love it.
And thank you for that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
I love that. Okay, well, thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
listening.
coming on.
Those of
Thank
you
you.
here in the room, we appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time on Full Engage. Thank you. Woo! All right. Good stuff, guys. Thanks, man.
What